And joining us right now is Senior Research Fellow from the Hudson Institute, Aparna Pande. Aparna, thank you so much for speaking with us. I know it's really
Thank
cold.
you.
We are both in DC, but we are in different locations. So wanted to still get your important views on
Of course.
Trump 2.0. Now, the first question I have for you is what does a Trump 2.0 mean for foreign policy, right? Is it going to be, he's talked about expanding the US territory in terms of getting to Greenland and mocking, Canada as the 51st state. Are we seeing a shift from a US isolationist policy towards becoming this new imperial power under Trump? I mean, what is this? I mean, how do you make sense of all these comments that Trump has made in the past 2 months or so?
Thanks, Rohit. Great to be here. I would say the thing to remember for the next 4 years is this is a return of great power politics. And every other country, small or middle power, is going to be squeezed and will need to adjust to, to great power politics. We haven't had this for a very long time. We haven't had this, I would say, since the days of the Cold War or immediately after the end of the Cold War. But this is the return of great power politics, and this is a return, and primarily because um, for the Trump 2.0 and for President Trump and his advisors, sort of the main goal is to ensure the return of American primacy, economic, military, and technological, and to push back and to some extent, to the extent they can, and if possible, to reduce China's preeminence and primacy. So it is great power politics. It is going to be between United States and China, and every other country will have to adjust to the reality. Sort of friends and allies, and I'm deliberately using both words because there are allies who are security, then there are friends and partners who are not, like India and many others, will have to adjust to this. So there will be things which will where the friends and allies will benefit. There will be areas where the friends and allies will have to adjust to American demands and American interests. I would sort of, as of now, I would see the comments, whether about Greenland or about Canada or Panama Canal, primarily coming from this return of great power politics. It is it is a negotiating style. The negotiating style is that American interests, the Monroe Doctrine,
Mhm.
America sort of and America's near abroad are important, and therefore, it is critical that the US has control or is the predominant power in its own neighborhood, whether that is the area near Greenland, whether that is the Panama Canal. Second, that American friends and partners and allies need to share some of the burden, economic and military, which the United States has been bearing for the last, multiple decades. And so the Trump 2.0 will demand more from American allies, more spending on defense, more sort of, a better trade and tariff regime. Because President Trump would like to inform his sort of, the American citizens, especially those whom he promised that, the US economy will do better. There will be, he will lower tariffs, he will get money back. And so this is a negotiating style. Sort of, how the world perceives it is different, but I
Uh-huh.
do believe it is a negotiating style to say that there's a new, as they say, a new sheriff is in town, and the new sheriff believes that great power politics is important. And everybody should accept that reality. It will be a message to many countries around the world, but let's wait and see once the administration actually starts. Give it a few months to, everybody gets nominated. They sort of, and there will be a lot of continuity because the Biden administration continued what the Trump administration did. The Trump administration continued what the Obama. So in some ways there will be continuity, but the difference will be this negotiating style, some of which we saw in Trump 1.0, and the return of this great power politics because of the peer rivalry, the competition with China.
Okay. You made very interesting points. You said it will be a change for both allies, right? Partners and enemies. India is seen as a very strategic ally. Sometimes, even
Partner, my
partner, I
friend.
should say.
An ally is a security ally.
Right, my bad, a partner. In terms of India, what will change?
So I would say India has an advantage. India is one of the very few countries which has retained its bipartisan consensus and support in the United States. At a time when the American society and polity is so polarized, India has retained that is remarkable. Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives believe the relationship with India is important for different reasons why they believe that. But, sort of if we come to sort of how the Trump 2.0 administration will look at it, it will be, primarily from the China lens, because India and the United States share similar views about China. India is important for the Indo-Pacific, for Quad, for pushing back against China. It's a country which has an antagonistic relationship with China. And so India will benefit on the big picture strategic front, um, because India and the United States share these threats, and sort of in the Indo-Pacific and in India's region as well. So on the securities front, on the strategic front, on the diplomatic and the personal, President Trump has a very good personal relationship with Prime Minister Modi, and the most of his key nominees right now are pro-India, whether it's incoming National Security Advisor or incoming Secretary of, sort of nominee Senator Rubio and many others. They all have positive views about India and the relationship between India and US. However, there will be pinpricks, and some of these are old. They are not new. The issue over trade and tariffs goes back 3 decades to the
Yeah.
1990s. It's continued since then. Most American administrations have seen India as strategic and therefore have not pushed India too much on these tariff issues. But in Trump 1.0, India faced a similar challenge. GSP Plus was taken away from India because India has market restrictions and tariffs. And during the campaign cycle, President Trump talked about India being, not sort of, being a hard negotiator, and the tariff concerns he has about India. So those will be there, especially at a time when he wants countries, that's his negotiating style. So on tariff and trade, India will have to give. The question is, how much can an India, which is semi-protectionist, give? But we'll have to wait and see. Second is immigration, both legal and illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Legal, the H-1B issue, which I'm sure you are following, which is playing out in public, the H-1B issue and, sort of the permanent residency, citizenship, the legal side, that will play up because there are differing views within the Trump ecosystem about, sort of who should be allowed to migrate, what role, sort of legal migration, how many and what large number. Then there's the illegal side. Unlike Trump 1.0, there are about 170, 180,000 illegal Indian immigrants on both the northern and the southern border.
Right.
And, sort of the incoming Trump team has talked about deporting, and I believe the Lake and Riley Act talks about it as well and
Yeah.
mentions, sort of countries like India and
Right.
others who do not take back people. So immigration, trade will be areas, I mean, I see Quad, Indo-Pacific, sort of the defense cooperation. I see Quad may be asked to move towards a little more of securitization, less of the public goods, because I don't see the Trump administration that interested in climate and vaccines, and issues like and debt sustainability as much as they are in the Malabar exercises, military, IPMDA, more security side, more economic, so more hard power, so as to push back against China. Indo-Pacific, yes, the broader strategy, because these were started under Trump 1.0. So what was started by him will continue in the next administration. They may add more things to it on the economic and security front. On the tech front, I said it's a good initiative started by the Biden administration. One hopes it continues, but it will depend upon, you know, one, whether the incoming team sees it as important. Sometimes something which the previous administration started, you continue. And sometimes you don't prioritize it, you tweak it, you change it, you bring about adjustment to it. So we'll have to see where that goes. It'll all depend on the priorities. It'll
Mm.
all depend on the asks from the incoming Trump administration. So we'll have to see how that goes. But by and large, India will benefit on many fronts, there will be the pinpricks and challenges which have been there for years, and it'll have to negotiate on those.
One last question, Aparna, and this is because we talked about the foreign policy. And yes, as much as people would not want to admit, India is looked through that China prism all the time, the relationship of India and US. Um, President Trump not tweeted, he posted on Truth Social about his call with Xi Jinping not too long ago, and he said he's looking forward to working with him, including saving TikTok and bringing peace. What does that even like? What does that mean? When he was running in 2015, 2016, even 2020, he was out against China. What is the importance of this phone call, and what does he mean by saying he's going to work with them to attain peace? Is he talking about Ukraine and Russia? I mean, can you give some insight?
So I'd say this is again negotiating style.
Okay.
He talked about sort of, remember in Trump 1.0, there were sort of, the back and forth with the North Korean, with Kim Jong-un, calling
Yep.
him Rocket Man, but then there was the meeting, it didn't go well, so nothing moved forward. At that time, too, there were conversations with President Xi. Sort of, there were pleasant conversations. Sort of, again, he invited President Xi Jinping to the inauguration publicly, if you recall.
Yes.
Sort of obviously the president wasn't going to come. I believe the vice president, Chinese vice president, is attending.
He's going to be.
And sort of, so this is his negotiating style. His negotiating style is either to sort of, be provocative or to be accommodative. He does sort of, this is his way. Now, at the end of the day, what results from it, we will have to wait and see. But this negotiating style is, to put pressure on the other country to come to the table and hopefully deliver things which he needs. Because from the end of the day, what he would like is, lower the tariff barriers, lower the costs, move some companies back home, get money for the American economy, whether through tariffs or taxes, as he says it, so that the cost for the Americans does not rise, but more money comes back into the American coffers. So this is a negotiating style. Where it will go will depend on both sides. President Xi, as they say, the other side has a say,
Hmm.
right? And so we'll have to see,
So, yeah.
even China, even the president, the Chinese have been, sort of know what will happen under the Trump 2.0. They've already been making their plans about tariffs, about, sort of holding on to some critical minerals, not allowing exports, worrying about, so not just TikTok, but worrying about any other bans or sanctions. So both sides, are negotiating in public and I'm sure in private.
All right, yeah. Yeah.
Sort of, where it will lead, we will need to see. I don't think that, I mean, that all of that said, I don't think at the core, the American, government sees China as anything but a peer competitor. And that will remain. But you still deal and work with a threat and a peer competitor. You can't ignore them. You can't isolate them. You can't dismiss them.
Hmm.
So you have to work with them and you have to negotiate with them. This is his style of negotiating.
Okay. And one quick question, Aparna, and this is something that I was thinking about when you talked about all these things. Can he pick up the phone and tell Putin to stop the war? He said he could, in the first 24 hours, he's going to call them, the war's going to end. Do you think he has the leverage to do that with Vladimir Putin?
So I don't know if he does have the leverage. I don't know if he will do it. I do believe from the reports we've all, sure you've read them as well as I have, that there have been back channel talks.
Yes.
The Middle East sort of, let sort of there's a ceasefire deal. Let's hope it lasts for at least a few months, not just a few weeks.
Uh-huh.
And let's sort of what happens over there. Russia and Ukraine is tougher. I mean, sort of will be tougher to do than the Middle East because he has a better relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu than he does with, and there's more American leverage in the Middle East than there is with Russia. And at the end of the day, President Putin needs to demonstrate to his people that after, 2 years or 2.5, almost 3 years of war come February, there's something that he has delivered. So we have to see what is the best thing which is possible in Ukraine and Russia.
Okay.
And sort of, we will all be watching. I don't know where it's going to go. So your guess will be as good as mine about what's going to happen in Ukraine.
Well, well, thank you so much for your time. We'll obviously keep coming back to you. There's a new sheriff in town, as you said, and one thing is for sure, there will never be a dull moment from Washington. So thank you so much, yeah, Aparna. We'll
Thank you.
talk soon and stay warm. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.